My mother married her lover before Dad's body was cold. She thinks this is her happy ending. She has no idea I came back to burn it all down.
The Harmattan wind whipped through Ilorin as the bull driver pulled up to Alhaji Ibrahim Bello's mansion. The estate loomed like a palace, whitewashed walls and a gurgling fountain, with the scent of incense drifting from a private mosque. At 22, Chioma was no longer the wide-eyed girl who had left for Ilorin 3 years ago. Her skin glowed from nights chasing TikTok trends, her body filled out in ways that commanded attention. But inside, she remained the broken girl who had buried her father 5 years prior. Grace, her mother, stood at the entrance in crisp Ankara, a Bible tucked under her arm like a shield. "My baby girl is home!" she exclaimed, pulling Chioma into a hug smelling of expensive perfume and anointing oil. Chioma stayed stiff. "How dare you," she thought. "Dad's body wasn't even cold when you started parading with this man." Alhaji Ibrahim emerged, his tall frame draped in a flowing white kaftan, prayer beads dangling from his wrist. At 55, he was strikingly handsome, possessing the quiet power of a man who'd built an empire from nothing. "Welcome home, Chioma," he said, his voice a deep, velvety mix of Yoruba and Hausa accents. He extended a hand. She ignored it, brushing past him to her room. That night, as the generator hummed against the blackout, Chioma scrolled through old photos. Her father, Pastor Eze, in his clerical collar. Then the wedding photos of Grace and Ibrahim, taken only 6 months after the funeral. "She slept with him while Dad was dying," Chioma whispered to the darkness. "Time to make her pay." Her room was unchanged, pale blue walls and the scent of camphor, but the photo of her father on the bedside table was gone, replaced by artificial roses. Chioma let her anger settle like harmattan dust. She opened the wardrobe to find good Christian daughter outfits Grace had bought. Chioma let them fall to the floor. She wasn't that girl anymore. Campus had taught her how to sway her hips to command a room and how to angle a phone for the perfect reel. Downstairs, the clink of plates and soft laughter drifted up. Grace was likely serving Ibrahim pounded yam, discussing church harvests or mosque boreholes. The image made Chioma's stomach twist. She messaged her confidant, Aisha. Reached. House smells like betrayal. Mom acting like nothing happened. Plan still on? Aisha's reply was instant. Chai, babe. You sure? No turning back-o. Chioma stared at the glowing crescent moon of the private mosque outside her window. She remembered her father's last raspy prayer at the hospital. Don't let the world change you. 3 days later, he was gone. 6 months later, Grace was remarried. Chioma caught her reflection. The fire in her eyes felt right. Tomorrow, the game would begin. Small things first. A lingering glance, a brush of fingers, a soft laugh. She would study Ibrahim's weaknesses like a film script. Revenge was the slow drip of honey laced with poison. Morning sunlight painted golden stripes across the dining table. The aroma of two-ocean kaffa filled the air as Grace launched into a fervent prayer. Ibrahim waited patiently, then murmured a quiet Arabi dua. Chioma sat opposite him in a fitted black tee that left little to the imagination. Her silver cross pendant dangled just above the neckline. "Uncle Ibrahim," she said, her voice like warm honey. "Pass the stew?" As she reached, her breast brushed his forearm, deliberate and fleeting. Ibrahim's fingers paused. For a split second, his eyes flicked down, dark and unreadable. He passed the bowl without a word, but the air thickened. Grace, oblivious, chattered about a bank promotion. Later, while Grace was at a prayer meeting, Chioma slipped into Ibrahim's study. Behind a stack of Quran commentaries, she found a brown envelope, yellow letters in Grace's script. "My dearest IB, last night in Jebba was heaven. Chukwama's anger grows worse." Attached were photos of them at a roadside hotel while her father was still alive.
Chioma's hands shook. The affair hadn't started after the funeral. It had been burning for years. She snapped photos and sent them to Aisha. "Mom's a hypocrite. Time to ruin her." Over the next few days, Chioma turned up the heat. An accidental bump of the hip in the kitchen, lingering on the balcony at dusk, letting her jasmine perfume drift toward him. One rainy evening, they sat on the couch watching a film. Chioma shifted closer, resting her head on his shoulder. "You make me feel safe, Uncle," she whispered. His hand settled on her knee, warm and firm. Neither moved as the rain drummed against the roof. The weekend brought a trip to Owu waterfalls. Amidst the roar of crashing water, Chioma slipped on a slick stone. Ibrahim caught her waist, his grip lingering as her wet skin pressed against his kaftan. Grace called from afar, and he released her slowly. That night, Chioma knocked on his study door wrapped in a sheer silk robe. "Can't sleep," thoughts of Dad. He poured her a glass of kunu. The conversation turned intimate, her loneliness, his quiet nights. Then she kissed him. It was soft, then urgent. "Haram," he whispered, but his hands were already under the robe. Clothes fell away in the dim glow of a lantern. He entered her slowly, then deep and rhythmic, her cross necklace slapping against his chest with every thrust. Afterward, he brushed hair from her face. "You're special, Chioma." She smirked inwardly, got him, but the warmth in his eyes planted a tiny, unwelcome seed of doubt. The line between revenge and desire had officially blurred.
Over the next few days, Chioma turned up the heat. An accidental bump of the hip in the kitchen, lingering on the balcony at dusk, letting her jasmine perfume drift toward him. One rainy evening, they sat on the couch watching a film. Chioma shifted closer, resting her head on his shoulder. "You make me feel safe, Uncle," she whispered. His hand settled on her knee, warm and firm. Neither moved as the rain drummed against the roof. The weekend brought a trip to Owu Waterfalls. Amidst the roar of crashing water, Chioma slipped on a slick stone. Ibrahim caught her waist, his grip lingering as her wet skin pressed against his caftan. Grace called from afar, and he released her slowly. That night, Chioma knocked on his study door, wrapped in a sheer silk robe. "Can't sleep. Thoughts of Dad." He poured her a glass of kunu. The conversation turned intimate, her loneliness, his quiet nights. Then she kissed him. It was soft, then urgent. "Haram," he whispered, but his hands were already under the robe. Clothes fell away in the dim glow of a lantern. He entered her slowly, then deep and rhythmic, her cross necklace slapping against his chest with every thrust. Afterward, he brushed hair from her face. "You're special, Chioma." She smirked inwardly, got him, but the warmth in his eyes planted a tiny, unwelcome seed of doubt. The line between revenge and desire had officially blurred. The days blurred into a fever of stolen heat. What began in the quiet of the study soon spilled into every shadowed corner of the mansion. One afternoon, under the guise of an errand to the central market, they sat in the back of Ibrahim's black Mercedes. While the driver sat stoic at a red light, Ibrahim's hand slid beneath Chioma's skirt. She bit her lip to stifle a moan as he pulled her onto his lap, entering her with a raw, urgent need that mocked the blaring horns of Ilorin outside. They finished breathless and messy, the scent of her perfume clinging to his white caftan as they stepped out to sign documents. Weekends became their sanctuary. When Grace traveled to Offa, the guest suite transformed into a private world. Ibrahim would drop to his knees, his hands gripping her hips as his mouth worshipped her with a desperate, flicking insistence. Later, she would straddle him, rolling her hips in slow, grinding circles while the headboard tapped rhythmically against the wall. But the fire began to cast long, distorted shadows. While Grace was at Bible study, Chioma discovered a hidden flash drive in her mother's jewelry box. The files were a revelation of rot, grainy videos of Pastor Ase striking Grace, and bank statements detailing church funds funneled into his gambling debts. A handwritten note from Grace read, "Ibrahim saved me from hell. He paid it all quietly." The truth pierced her. That night, tangled in the sheets of the guest room, Chioma confronted him. "Did you kill my father?" Ibrahim's eyes went dark with pain. "No, your father gambled away your school fees and your home. I paid the debts to save your mother. I did it for her and for you." Rage softened into a confused, bitter ache. That ache only intensified when a message arrived from her confidant, Aisha. "Be careful, your mom is asking questions. She wants to know if you're happy." Chioma felt a chill. She had no idea that Aisha was a double agent, feeding every detail of the affair back to Grace. The tension reached its breaking point during the Salah festival at the Emir's palace. Amidst the thunder of drummers and the swirl of dancers, Chioma moved in a black abaya and clung to her curves. She caught Ibrahim's eye across the crowded courtyard, a sidelong glance, a subtle tilt of the head. His jaw tightened, his prayer beats pausing mid-click. Grace stood between them, chatting with old friends, entirely oblivious to the electricity crackling through the air.
The risk escalated. One evening, while Grace was at a bank meeting, they retreated to the master bathroom. Under the pounding heat of the rainfall shower, Ibrahim soaped her skin in slow, agonizing circles. He pressed her against the tiles, sliding into her from behind. Her cries echoed off the steam-clouded glass as he moved with a raw, rhythmic power. But Chioma's mind remained a weapon. She hired a hacker to dig deeper, uncovering mismatched blood types and land deals that hinted at a much larger deception. She was close to the heart of the secret, but so was Grace. Over breakfast, Grace smiled with a terrifying warmth. "You two are bonding so well. He's the father figure you never had." Chioma forced a laugh, but her pulse thrummed with dread. She later found Grace's hidden digital journal. One entry stopped her heart. The affair began in 2017. Ibrahim is her real father. Shakuma raised her, but the truth is in the blood. Chioma closed the app, her breath hitching. Lies, she told herself. Desperate, guilty lies. That night, they turned the master bedroom into a battlefield. Ibrahim playfully bound her wrists with his wooden prayer beads, teasing her for hours until she begged for release. When he finally claimed her, he growled against her ear. "You're mine now." She shattered beneath him, whispering his name like a curse. The illusion broke the next morning with a final text from Aisha. "Babe, your mom knows. She told me to report back. She's been playing you the whole time." She almost stormed into Ibrahim's study, her face flushed with betrayal. "You both manipulated me? Was this all a game to make me accept you?" Ibrahim looked up, his expression heavy with a sudden, crushing honesty. "Grace pushed it because she wanted us to be a family. But the moment you kissed me, Chioma, it stopped being a game." Tears of pure rage burned her eyes. They had used her desire as a leash. She fled to her room, the walls of the mansion closing in. The biggest lie was no longer hidden. It was breathing right beside her.
Rage finally burned away the last of Chioma's doubt. As a bruised purple dusk settled over the GRA, she sent the final summons to Ibrahim. "Meet me in the gazebo, now." He arrived like a ghost, his kaftan whispering against the stone path. No words passed between them. In the flickering glow of the string lights, she pulled him down, straddling his lap with a desperate energy. She rode him hard, her nails carving deep lines into his back, her breath coming in jagged gasps. This wasn't love. It was a ritual of conquest. "This is goodbye," she hissed through clenched teeth as a violent climax tore through her, leaving her shuddering against his chest. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by his ragged breathing. "Chioma, wait." Ibrahim's voice, usually so steady, cracked. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket, a DNA test dated months ago. "I am your biological father." The words landed like physical blows. He explained it in a hollow monotone. A single night of weakness years ago. Her father, Pastor Eze, had found out and raised her out of spite, punishing Grace every day for her sin. Chioma froze, still physically joined to him, the intimacy curdling into something grotesque. Before she could scream, a shadow fell over them. Grace stood at the gazebo steps, frail, her eyes sunken. She wore a thick scarf, not for fashion, but to hide the patches of hair lost to terminal cancer. "I orchestrated it all," Grace whispered. "The closeness, the plan. I wanted you to have a father to protect you when I'm gone. Forgive us." Chioma scrambled off him, her stomach churning. She stumbled to the edge of the gazebo and vomited into the flowers, the bile burning her throat like acid. When Grace reached out a trembling hand, Chioma recoiled as if touched by a serpent. "You made me sleep with my own father," she choked out. "You've destroyed me." Later, locked in her bathroom, Chioma stared at a pregnancy test. 2 pink lines, stark, final, and haunting. A child. Her father's child. The fire that had fueled her revenge was now nothing but cold, gray ash. At dawn, the azan from a distant mosque drifted through the window, blending with the first cockcrow. Chioma stood in the living room, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder. Grace and Ibrahim sat on the sofa like statues. "You are monsters," Chioma said, her voice dropping to a lethal steel. "Mom, you sold your soul for a mansion. Ibrahim, you took my innocence knowing exactly who I was. You played God with my life, and you lost." "Chioma, please," Grace sobbed, clutching her wrapper. "For me," Chioma's laugh was a jagged shard of glass.
You let me fuck my own father! She grabbed the framed family photo from the mantel and smashed it against the marble floor. Glass exploded, glittering like the ruins of her life. She turned and walked through the foyer, pushing open the heavy iron gates without a backward glance. In the Bolt car, her phone vibrated incessantly. She blocked every number and powered off the device, severing the final thread. At the motor park, she bought a ticket for the first bus heading north, Abuja, Kano, anywhere the dust of Ilorin couldn't reach. Hours later, as the bus rumbled through the dark savannah, Chioma rested a hand on her still-flat belly. In a dingy roadside hotel in Kaduna, she looked at the two pink lines one last time. "I'll raise you far from their lies," she whispered to the shadows. "No churches, no mosques, no gilded cages, just us." She switched off the light and let the darkness swallow her. By morning, she would be a ghost, a new name, a new city, vanishing into the vast, unforgiving unknown. Her revenge was complete, not by destroying them, but by erasing the girl they thought they owned. Thanks for watching till the end. I share new stories daily. Do well to subscribe, like, and drop a comment if you enjoyed listening to this story.